It was honestly very interesting to find out about the origins of The Thief and the Cobbler. For a feature that had so much ambition behind it, one would expect maybe the idea came from an ancient story from a long time ago, or a life-changing trip to the Middle East. But nope. It turned out it came from one of Richard Williams' side projects that he decided he'll turn it into an animated film and then got carried away. Who knew? Anyways, after losing Nasruddin, this would be the part where the feature that animation fans would recognize started to take shape. As you will see, this is where the movie will find its characters and its unforgettable art style. However, while it is great to have these so that the film can have its identity, there is one thing that it needed the most in order to have these elements come to life. Yet it would seem to be the hardest to achieve for Williams, or at least for him to give to his project. You can't tell your story unless you have the money to tell it with. Speaking of which...
As it turns out, Howard Blake was right all along that the movie needed a proper story treatment, which was why in 1973, Williams hired him to write a new script for the project. The result was a treatment called Tin Tack. Still retaining its Persian theme from Nasruddin and have the thief play more of a significant role in the story, the movie would star a cobbler named Tack, who would pay homage to the classic film stars like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, where he would present himself as foolish, naive, and kinda clumsy, but would always miraculously come out perfectly fine. Also, like those Hollywood pioneers, both the cobbler and the thief would be mute throughout the whole, or at least most of the feature, letting their actions express who they are more than anything they could ever say. But that doesn't mean the whole movie would be silent either, as other characters would have the ability to talk. Like the thief, Dick would incorporate other characters he made for Nasruddin and alter them a bit to have them be original, including an old nurse who serves the princess, voiced by Joan Sims, the always lazy King Nod, played by Sir Anthony Quayle, and the main antagonist of the picture, the Grand Vizier Zigzag, voiced by Vincent Price, who would be the only character to speak entirely in rhyme.
Aha! You've finished Yum Yum Shoe. You've done it very well. And now she has no need of you. We'll put you in a cell.
But with the old ones, there would also be new ones like Tack. These include his eventual lover, Princess Yum Yum, played by Sarah Crowe, the mad holy old witch, portrayed by, again, Joan Sims, the evil One-Eye, who would threaten to destroy Nod's kingdom, played by one of the tallest men in England, Christopher Greener, and a whole ragtag team of brigands that would help Tack on his adventures. However, as the team would start on their animated epic, there was only one thing that was standing in their way from actually doing anything. They need the money. The project wasn't paying for itself. Keep in mind, this was a fully independent feature that was coming out of Dick's own pockets, so the studio ultimately decided to take whatever side project they can. Commercials, side specials, movie titles, you name it, they'll do it if the price is right. The company also agreed to work on another animated feature, this time being Raggedy Ann and Andy: A Musical Adventure. The production was hard to get through with Williams clashing over some creative decisions, but the film was managed to be complete and was released on April 1st, 1977 to mixed reviews and making little at the box office. Sure, the outcome wasn't all that good, but at least they got the job done and got the cash they needed. At the same time, Richard also temporarily turned his studio into an animation school, where the artists and animators who work there would take these intense courses with a lot of homework included to really sharpen up their skills in a short amount of time. As for the teachers, Dick would bring on board even more renowned animation veterans whose works also include projects from Disney's Golden Age, including prolific animator Emery Hawkins, the animator of Snow White and Betty Boop, Grin Natwick, and Art Babbitt, whose works include the Evil Queen from Snow White, the Dancing Mushrooms from Fantasia, and often credited to be the creator of Goofy. At the same time, they were also employees at the studio, working on the commercial projects, the Raggedy Ann and Andy film, and of course, the studio's big movie. But these guys wouldn't be there just to work for Dick. They were also there to teach Dick. You see, Williams was a man who was always willing to learn to become a better artist. It's no surprise that he would look up to these industry legends, which is why they, along with Ken Harris, would take on the role of mentors to teach Richard and the team what they've masterfully crafted at places like Warner Brothers and Disney. He wouldn't stop at them to learn about animation though. Dick would also visit other Disney legends for help to improve his art, including Ken Anderson, Milt Kahl, Frank Thomas, and Ollie Johnston. However, because of the teachings, because of working on projects of others, and because of the never-ending search for money to keep business running, it all consequentially delayed the production of the movie the crew treasured the most. But those weren't the only reasons for its prolonging. What could debatably be the main cause why it was still taking so long to make was because of its ever-growing determination to become the best. As the years go by, Williams' goal would become a lot more ambitious as he would set this out to not just become the best movie he can make or his own magnum opus, but to have this be the best animated feature ever created. Even if it would be a pain for the animators, including the masters, Dick always wanted to go to the hardest route to make his style look very complex and detailed, which would deliver greater rewards for the film to look like nothing that the world had ever seen. On top of that, in order for the movements to look as smooth as possible, he demanded the animation to be completely done in ones instead of the regular twos.
Hey! Now, before I continue, I'm sure some of you are probably not familiar with some animation lingo here, like when I said ones or twos. So, to make you fully understand what I'm talking about, I'll give you a quick crash course on what they mean. Now, as we all know, the classic definition of animation is a series of drawings set one on top of another at a speed that gives us the illusion that the drawings are coming to life. Or as the industry would like to call it, the illusion of life. Now, in a film, there are 24 frames in 1 second. In order for animators to know how many drawings they have to do for the project, they would use the numbers to indicate how many frames would that one drawing be shown. So when someone would say that they're animating in twos, that means that one drawing would be shown in 2 frames, resulting in 12 drawings per second of the film. It really is a simple math thing. When you would draw in 3s, you would do 8 drawings per second, and in 4s, you do 6 drawings per second. But that is not what we are dealing with here. What Richard Williams demanded was in ones, meaning that he and his team would have to make 24 drawings per second of the movie. And if you look at the screenshot behind me, you see how this is a very detailed drawing. So imagine making highly complex images like these, knowing that they only appear for about a 24th of a second, and having to do that again and again and again and again and again on a daily basis is absolutely insane! So, now that you know the levels of crazy determination that I'm talking about here, let us continue.
But even with the big ambitions and collecting all the work the studio could to raise money, it wasn't enough to keep the production going at a pace that Williams wanted. While he did earn some profit from his hundreds of commercial work, he only made just enough to keep the studio afloat, and very little was spent on his passion project. That was the moment he knew that if he ever wanted to see his movie completed in his lifetime, he'd have to find someone to fund the extra money he needed. As luck would have it, Dick did discover someone in the form of a Saudi Arabian prince by the name of Mohammed bin Faisal Al Saud. In the late 1970s, he was intrigued by what Dick was doing at his studio and decided to see if this project was worth investing. Faisal agreed to give him only $100,000 in order to create a 10-minute test footage to present a good idea of what this movie could be. With the money at hand, Richard decided to animate one of the most complex scenes of the movie as his test. It was a scene near the end of the film where the thief was in the giant war machine that would have destroyed the kingdom. As he was trying to retrieve the golden balls that he stole before, the machine would be crumbling down as the thief would keep unknowingly avoid death with every step he took. What would later be known as the battle sequence, it was a scene that really took Dick's animation to the next level. For the first time, as the scene would slowly come to life, the animators are seeing the true potential of what this movie could do. The complex drawings working together to create a highly elaborate environment, the different perspectives that give the animation a three-dimensional look despite being purely hand-drawn, and the perfect comedic timing of the thief's unawareness that the whole place is about to collapse in itself all combine to give the crew at the studio a sense of motivation that they have never felt before. With this newly made footage, they are finally seeing what Williams was thinking of for so many years, and this proved that not only would this movie be actually possible, but might prove Dick to be right when he said that the movie would be the best thing to ever happen in animation. After more than a year of development, the footage was finally shown to the prince, and after careful consideration, he ultimately decided to not fund the movie. As impressed as he was of what the team created, Faisal decided that it was just not good enough to get himself fully invested. That and also Dick missed the deadline of the test twice, and went over the $100,000 budget by ending up costing $250,000. I think those might have played a factor on Faisal's decision as well. As the 1980s would come, the studio was not in the strongest shape since the decline of the Prince's offer. It wasn't that business was bad, they were still doing some commercial works to pay the bills and, at that point, had gathered nearly 200 awards, including Dick's BAFTA, Oscar, and a newly earned Emmy for the 1982 TV special Ziggy's Gift. However, for the ambitious movie, it was going pretty slow, back in its position of rarely having money to grow with only the battle sequence to promote to potential backers. And what was worse, the studio unfortunately lost one of its master animators who was also a mentor and Williams' good friend, Ken Harris, who passed away on March 12, 1982. From time to time, there would be a few people who would show interest in possibly funding Dick's movie. Gary Kurtz, the man who produced the original Star Wars, its sequel, and Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal was once involved, and another producer, Jake Ebert, stepped into production a little more seriously to help things out, since he did once produce a more serious animated feature with the 1978 film Watership Down. While Eberts did demand to change up the script, which would include removing some characters and consequentially animations done by the masters, at least it was a way to sustain the feature in some form. But then came a familiar filmmaker named Steven Spielberg, whom in the mid-1980s saw what Williams was doing at his studio. He was rather impressed with the innovation he crafted in the battle sequence and the way the studio blended live action with animation on some Fanta commercials that featured Disney characters. From there, Spielberg would offer Dick an offer he accepted that would entail some good news and some bad news. The bad news was that while it would get him a good chunk of money he needed, it would mean that he would work on someone else's project, which he had grown to hate, as it would also mean less creative freedom and less time on his own project. The good news, though, was that Williams was going to play a key role in revolutionizing animation with Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Smile, you'll know that the world is a great world after all. Smile, smile, just smile.
I can't wait to finish it. I wish it was finished now. But it's not a lot of my friends are saying, oh, he'll never finish that thing. He just uses it to keep him sane while he does advertising. And I say, well, okay, if you're so smart, you put, $3 million we put into The Thief? That's a hell of a hobby.